AskReddit by potential middle 6575. What's a book that introduced you to a culture or perspective you knew little about? On the Road, Jack Kerouac. I knew nothing about beatnik culture. I embraced the culture to an extent in the mid-90s and went hitchhiking from England all over Europe, where I met a girl, now my wife, and subsequently moved to Finland where I now reside. Same for me, but I wasn't super interested in beatnik culture. I was more interested in how he described travel the Midwest, especially his 1947 journey from Neck to Denver. I ended up driving the route from Illinois to Denver, stopping at all the places references including Rock Island, Davenport, Iowa City, Stewart, Omaha, Grand Island, North Platte, Gothenburg, Cheyenne, etc. Tibullum by Victor Angel Ribeiro. Before this book, Goa was just a place with hippies, druggies for me. Got to understand the blend of old world Christian culture with traditional Indian society of the locals. Daughter of the Reef by Claire Bell. Ancient Tahitian with elements of low fantasy. You have certain prejudices and negative expectations how the people would have lived and treated each other. Instead you get introduced to a fairly happy, in some aspects primitive yet in others very modern culture. Love how one Amazon review criticizes the book for having too much Tahitian stuff. Say Nothing, A True Story of Murder and Memory in Northern Ireland is a 2018 book by writer and journalist Patrick Radden Keefe. It's about the Troubles. When I was a kid, I always heard about a car bomb or two going off there, but I never knew the story behind it. The Jungle kind of shows you how deplorable and hard it was to make a living 100 years ago. It didn't make me a vegetarian, just made me appreciate OSHA. There's a book I read as a teen called Sweet Dated in Basra, I believe written by the daughter of an Iraqi immigrant. About pre-early WWII Iraq and features characters from a few different faiths and backgrounds. Wasn't a common perspective I had seen of Iraq as an American high schooler in 2010. Pachinko by Minjin Lee introduced me to 20th century Korean culture and society while under Japanese occupation and to the existence and experience of Korean immigrants to Japan. The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns introduced me to Afghani culture. God's Middle Finger. It talks about the people who live in the Sierra Madres in Mexico, like polygamist Mormons, the Terra Humera, and drug cartels. Diary of Anne Frank kind of made you feel like you were in the room with them hiding from Z Germans. I'm partway through the audiobook of Killers of the Flower Moon, haven't seen the movie yet. I'm not American so I don't know all that much about the First Nations of America. The chapter discussing the slow strangulation of Osage culture and genocide of the people over the course of the 19th and 20th centuries was enraging. I knew in a vague way that these things had happened. They also happened almost to the book here in Australia too, yet hearing it all clearly laid out, the series of broken promises and lies and cruelty shamelessly dealt out by the colonizers and the US government. I shed some angry tears. But it felt vital to listen and understand it. I think being able to feel that kind of rage, despair, grief on behalf of people you've never met or seen is important to the human experience and to prevent such atrocities from happening again. Armistead Maupin, Tales of the City, Homosexuality. A Single Shard, a book I loved as a kid, was set on 12th century Korea and was about pottery. Shogun. Kind of started my fascination with all things Japan. Born to Run, https://littlerebooks.com/summary/born-to-run is about a tribe that's really good at running. Born to Run and the Terra Humera natives in Mexico. Introduced simple living and barefoot running, minimalist footwear. IDK if it counts, but every once in a while when I'm reading Junji Ito's horror manga, I learned something about Japan I hadn't known before. For example, one of the characters was worried that there might be bodies buried in the cemetery behind her new apartment. which made me put the book aside so I could Google what Japanese cemeteries are like. Apparently most people get cremated and their ashes are put into their grave markers. They even have skyscraper cemeteries in Tokyo.